All right, once again, good morning, everyone. Um, Welcome to today's office hours. Um, Today we'll be going over updated procedure for project setup. This is specifically for Forma, but if you do have any questions on any of the other project setup processes, please feel free at the end of this walkthrough to ask those. And additionally, able to ask about anything in construction. So with that in mind, just wanted to, as always, first show you the WikiSite homepage and show you how to navigate to the page where we get to project setup. And as always, let's go to construction tab and then navigate to pre-construction because this should be done prior to when construction starts, especially Forma and also headlight should be created before your project starts construction. I think the needs are pretty self-explanatory. Submittals oftentimes are, or pre-construction submittals are always submitted before construction. So we need to make sure that those are reviewed, coordinated, and reviewed in Forma. Additionally, headlight, a lot of those submittals can be materials that need to be submitted to lab or material certification that needs to be submitted to lab. So that is also needed. And also your payment information, setting up your progress payments, all of that obviously is in headlight. So important note here is just to make sure that we are setting up these projects beforehand. For headlight, there is a wait time for about 2 weeks at the most. But obviously, if you need to expedite that, then you can submit a request and let us know, and we can help work through that. But for today, we'll talk about Forma. If you go under the pre-construction section within the construction tab on the h.wiki site, you can navigate to two things for Forma. First is just Forma itself, and I'll take you to here just to briefly see what it is. This is essentially just a Forma startup, so it'll take you through some of the resources that we have for the various modules. And all of these links go into detailed best practices for how to set up and maintain these modules. Now, the article we're going to talk about today, which we've updated here recently and added recently, is the Forma project setup. Previously, it was ACC project setup, and it was last updated in 2023. So when we initially migrated over from our previous project management system to ACC, now Forma. So we'll get a look into here to check and go through the process. And so for Forma, obviously we want to be, we as project engineers and also construction managers and HDOT project engineers, we have the ability to create projects in Forma. So in essence, there's no wait time in terms of submitting a request, going through that process. We're able to do it on our end. Now, if you do not have access to the projects page to get access to create a project, then that simply just means that you're not a project administrator on any project across the HDOT account. So that is an easy fix. Send that request over to Econ and we'll be able to get you added as a project admin on the current project that you're looking to create, and then you can take off and running with that project, and then similarly you'd be set up for the same permissions moving forward. So just to get started here, as I've emphasized throughout the first 7 minutes of this office hours, setting up your project early is important, but it's also just important overall. Without following this project setup, some of the workflows behind the scenes, forms, review workflows, submittal workflows, review workflows, all of that stuff will not be imported over from the state standard. So a lot of the sheet naming convention, everything, all the modules have a certain level, a certain degree of setup, and we've tried our best to set it up as specific as we can at a template level. So I'll go through each module in a little bit, and you'll understand what that means a little bit more. But just want to make sure that this is an important step and will make a lot of work for you later on if you do not do this step. It's not impossible, but you're able to. But it's just important that we click this whenever we're setting up a project and we're not clicking a blank template, because it will get us a starting point that will make it easier for us. So first things first, talked about projects page. So here's the list, or here's the link to the project list. And this doesn't necessarily just have to be used for project creation, but if you're looking to create a project, you can create with this blue button here that is highlighted in red. But also, if you just want to navigate to your project list to see all the projects that you're a part of and that you can access within Forma, go ahead and click on this as well. This is also a good link to save to your bookmarks, as it is a good link if you do not already have to just go to Forma and be able to click into any of your projects. Obviously, once you click the Create Project button, you're going to be prompted with a few different things. And in the past, we've just let you decide some of the convention, let you decide some of the naming convention types, and also leave blank templates. But now we're emphasizing a few different things here that will help the account, that'll help us at the account level with certain information. So the first thing is project name. We do not want to be using project names that are different than the official project name on your contract or on your plan sheets. Please be sure that we're using the official project name and we're not using hyphenated, we're not using cut down project names, as that will provide for confusion later on when we're looking at all of the projects as a whole. And then sometimes people are creating projects for separate trackers or paving trackers or as-built tracker. It totally depends. We just want to make sure that for your actual construction project that you have the project name spelled out per the contract. And I know some of those names can get long, but this is something that is needed for organization on the account level. Similarly, for project number, there are two distinctions, right? Two typical distinctions. If your project has federal participation and has a federal project number, then we would like for you to enter in your project number like this. So with the federal aid project here, just to distinguish that at a project level, because currently a lot of times we'd have to go through the project convention, project number convention, and we'd have to look, and it is just easier if we have this information available at an account level, and we enter it in at that project creation level. And then similarly, we deal with IDIQ projects. Let's make sure that at the project number level that we are specifying the work order that the project pertains to, because as you all know, for one contract there is a lot of work orders, and if a lot of times the projects are named the same, and when you're trying to look through various different projects, it gets really messy, and it looks very similar both at the navigation tab that's going to be at the top of Forma and also at the project list level. So next, project type, typically that's just highways, so it's going to be project type. This is just as Forma has various different projects, not only highways and horizontal construction, they have a bunch of other project types that they put in here. Most cases, it's just going to be highways job, so let's just use the highways project type to be consistent across our account. And then this is the important thing. Out of out of all of this initial project setup, the most important thing is that you use the standard HDOT template and make sure that you name and number it correctly. So those are the highlights: template and also project name and number. All of this information here, the address, the start date, end date, project value, that is all optional. We should already know all of this information from the contract. So it is helpful when you do enter in the information here, but however, it's not mandatory nor necessarily needed, as we will be uploading the project documentation in other places that we can access that information. Okay, so after you initially set up the project, what's going to happen is you're going to be taken to your project, and you are only going to show up here as the only person on your project for a little bit. And what you're going to do is you want to make sure that you click your name and that you toggle on build and docs. Our docs by default is already always, or sorry, not docs. Docs turned into data management now. So data management should always be by default activated. But in some cases, you'll need to activate build. So you'll need to click on your name. There's going to be a short toggle that will say build, data management, cost management, so on, a bunch of other things that we don't necessarily have. So you got to make sure that you toggle on build. And if you want cost management, you can toggle that on too. That is also included in our HDOT Enterprise subscription. However, the rest of the options that you'll see, if you toggle it on, all it will do is it'll give you a 30-day trial, and then it will get removed after that. So I wouldn't bother with those unless you wanted to, of course, do a 30-day trial for some of those other tools. So first things first, you'll be added, and for a moment, as I said before, you'll be the only person that's seen here. You'll need to keep on refreshing, and eventually all of the members from the template will be added. So e-construction, just so that we have access to your project, so that when problems occur, we can go in, analyze, and provide a solution. Highway L, so obviously Highway L uses Forma to look at your plan sheets and also project specifications for their review of material submittals. And then Highway C members, so Eddie, Steve, those folks will be added just for the same reason as the construction support. If anything is needed, they'll have access to see what's going on. B&P auditors, so your third-party inspector, any auditor that's taking a look at your B&P weekly and monthly forms, along with your rain gauge reports. These people, they will have access to your project. They will have access to that B&P folder within files. And then also OCR now will have access to Forma projects, as they will be looking for the labor compliance documentation in your project. So we have a few recommendations here and best practices. So it's very important that we add people to the correct roles, because the roles drive the permission level across the project. Obviously, contractors are very important for how you add them to the project. There's internal documentation in here. This is our main project management system. So we want to make sure that the contractor has the proper role. Otherwise, they're going to be able to see things that they don't need to see, or that they shouldn't see. So 3 contractor roles: admin, engineer, and project manager. All of these are the same. They have the same access level. They have the same essential role. It's just broken out by name, and we provided 3 different names. And this is just to provide for clarity purposes. If it's someone who's uploading payrolls only and someone who is only helping on the project a little bit, I would upload them as an admin. If they are a project engineer that you're dealing with on the contractor side, I'd put them as here. So in most cases, it's going to be this. And then also, if you have a certain PM who is the manager on the contractor side, then distinguishing that with this role is often helpful just when viewing the project and knowing who's who. But like I said, these three provide the same access level. Next, we have HDOT. So this is also important because as of late, we've been creating forms, creating review workflows, and setting it at a template level and also library level. And this is going to be based off of roles. And if we don't have the correct role set up for your members, then you will not get access. At first, you'll have to go back and manually edit some of the workflows to specific individual members and or companies. But if you do set it up at the project level correctly, then this will make it obviously easier for your project setup process as a whole. So we have roles for inspectors and we have roles for engineers. So there's an inspector role and there is an engineer role. So those are pretty self-explanatory: inspector, project engineer. We also have recently added these roles: supervising inspector. So obviously these roles are kind of similar, where they're all supervisors and they have multiple projects that they're dealing with. So we just wanted to make roles for them so that, number one, when you go into the project, you can see who's who. Number two, it will provide different access levels based off of that. And so please be sure that for our HDOT team, we distinguish the proper roles and also make sure that these people are added as well. I often see a lot of times maybe the construction engineer is not a part of the project and or supervising inspector. So a lot of times we just focus on these two things, but it's important to not forget these people as well. And then similarly, okay, a lot of people get confused about project member versus project admin. If you're project admin, you have access to the entire project. You can change anything in the project. We only want to give project administrator access to those who will require full control. So just be careful on who you're giving project administrator access to. I've seen in the past where we've given project administrator, or someone has given project administrator access to a contractor, and we turn that off really fast. So let's be sure that the access level is most of the time by default project member, and only if a few select people should be selected as a project administrator. Similarly, companies, it helps when we're creating workflows as well. If you're assigning particular modules access based off of company, then assigning people the company is extremely helpful. Also, in some use cases for me, when I'm sending back submittals to the contractor or when I'm sending submittals to designers, if I will assign it to their company, and so that anybody from their company, if somebody's out of office or if anyone who's added to the project from their company will be able to go in and review it. Similarly, for contractors, I know on one of our projects we have like 4 engineers that we're dealing with. So assigning it to the company allows a multitude of people to go back and resubmit that submittal instead of having to always go through that one person. Next, and then this is what I was highlighting before: ensure that the contractor users are assigned appropriate contractor roles and also access level. So I know we've got 9 minutes left. I'm going to kind of breeze through this so we have time for questions. Now we're getting to sheets, so make sure that at the project setup level, this is one of the first things that you should be doing: uploading your sheets. And we have a link to the best practice here, where the best practice shows how to properly add project sheets with the proper naming convention and adding disciplines and reorganizing disciplines. So please check that out. Won't go into detail about this. Similarly, we have a files structure, and this has been updated since we last had the migration, and it was originally just CM folder in general. So we updated the folder structure now to have 2 sections. One is some of the stuff that flows down from design, and the second is the construction. So it looks very similar to what you are used to seeing, but even the construction management and also general folder have been reorganized and have been updated. So a lot of the documentation actually lives in the general folder because the contractor will see it, but the internal documentations and the folders for those internal documentation still do live within the construction management folder. So we updated this. We create, like we said before, the permission settings are based off of the template. So if you create from the template, you are able to see the imported roles that we accessed for here. So for example, there's BMP folder within the general, within the construction management phase, and only if you use the template that will be set up so that BMP auditors can go in and take a look at it. If you don't use the template, it'll just be by default, everyone will have access to it. There will actually be no folders here for you if you don't use the template. So yes, verifying the permissions, once you create the project, verifying that the contractor has proper access to the general folder, verifying that your team has access to the particular folders that are needed is important. Then issues, this most of the time you won't necessarily need to add any issue types. If you use the template, it'll automatically come with the custom issue types that we've added. So BMPs, changes in claims, so potential claims, potential change orders. If you use the template, it'll automatically be on here already. So that is also important. Just a reminder, make sure that we're tracking our potential claims through issues. And then also BMPs, obviously that is also a custom one that we've added that is here. But all of the lock ones here are the default ones. So without using the template, you will not see these types, and thus, will not be able to see information for you, and you won't be tracking it correctly. So then you go through issue permission setting. You just want to be sure that you go through and select. The main thing is that, especially for the potential claims, by default, the contractor role will not have access to see those issues, but it's also just good to go through and check it to see if people have visibility. Similarly, forms. So forms we can add at a template level, and later they added the library, so it makes it easier, and it's honestly less important for you to for the template for forms in the template, just because we have library now. So library, we're able to add forms to the entire H dot project library, and then we can add them and import them all to your project at an account level. So this is honestly less important. However, you might as well still use the template for this. Similarly, RFIs, this doesn't necessarily have to do with the template. This is just typical project setup. So when you're setting up RFIs, you want to make sure that you have managers so that they can access all the RFIs sent to the proper reviewer. You also want to make sure that you add the designers on your project as a reviewer so that you can send things to them for review. Similarly, for submittals, we want to make sure that we're adding submittal. You have to be careful who you add as a submittal manager, because the submittal manager will have access to all submittals and will be able to push submittals through all steps of the submittal phase. So please be sure that we're being careful with who we're adding as submittal managers. And then also, one of the things that is helpful is setting a default value. So if you have somebody who's fielding all the submittals, want to be sure that we're adding them as the default manager. Just if there's nothing there, then what will happen is the contractor, when they go and submit that submittal, it'll show up as blank, and they'll have to click in and select the person every time. Not a bad thing if you have different people reviewing different submittals. However, if you have one main person that will be reviewing all the submittals, then it is helpful if you assign that person here. Also, you can also assign a role, as I was talking before. So if many people from your project are fielding submittals, and you can just put, for example, for us, you see that QRC, I could put QRC as a company, so everyone on our project management team who is from our company will be able to take that submittal and distribute it accordingly. Similarly, you have default watchers. So if you have people that you want to be able to watch on submittals, in most cases, this is going to be your construction engineer, resident engineer level, supervisor, inspector. So that will be at that level, since they're obviously not interacting with every submittal, but they should have visibility. That is the option for the default watchers list there. So they'll be added to every single submittal. Again, the submittal types, this doesn't necessarily really matter. If you do see a submittal type that you want to create so that you can assign to a particular submittal submission, then go ahead, but in most cases, the default submittal types will capture everything that's needed for the submittal. And that's mainly it at a brief updated level. Just wanted to see if there was any questions on this.
We have one question in the chat.
Okay, sorry, I was not looking in the chat. You assign acting resident engineer to. Okay, so Marvin, it's not necessarily So I mean it's a fair question. Marvin's question is, do you assign acting resident engineer to resident engineer, and similarly acting construction engineer to construction engineer? What happens as persons change during the project or if changes occur going forward? So I would just say, Marvin, what to do in that scenario is don't remove access for that one person. So let's say that Brent is out of office, and don't remove that construction engineer role from him and transfer it to another person. You can assign two construction engineer roles. You can assign two people construction engineer roles on a project. So what I would do in that scenario is I would have Brent as a construction engineer still. Brent is out of office, so then Ryan or somebody else is TAing for Brent. So or someone else. Whoever that person is, you can add to the project, or if they're already on the project, you can just assign them the construction engineer role. In all honesty, the right now the supervising roles, so supervisor, inspector, construction engineer, resident engineer, they have similar access. They have similar permission level to each other. It's just mainly to provide visibility for projects to see who is who. So as we go through this and as time passes by, we'll definitely tailor some of the permissions and get it at a more granular level. But for now, it is mainly just a way to distinguish who's who on a project. So if you'd like, you can add the acting construction engineer to the project, and you can give them the construction engineer role, and then you could take it off after when the person is done. That would be my recommendation for this type of situation. Is there any other questions?
I have another question too. Well, this morning I got an email about open reviews from ACC Forma, but I don't know what they're referring to. They said it has to be closed out by April 30th.
Yeah. So let me pull up the email, Marvin. Okay, so this is a good question, because this is an announcement that we'll be making here shortly. Let me pull up the screen here. Okay, so this is an email sent out by the Autodesk team, and it essentially says, and this is sort of important for us to know and important for us to deal with. Number one, reviews created before October 31st. So Forma, previously ACC, made big updates to their the reviews module, and they're going to make an even bigger one here shortly. But what is important is the reviews created before October 31st, where they changed a lot of their backend. You know how when you have a review and you have a review workflow that you created, when something gets submitted to your step, the first step that you need to do is claim it. So if it's because there's multiple roles that are assigned to that review. So the first thing you need to do is claim the review. They're taking that away now. So reviewers will no longer be able to claim or submit review tasks. Reviews will stay at their current set and you will no longer be able to change them. So these reviews will not disappear. Okay. So October 31st, 2025, any reviews before then, we need to make sure that if we want to take it to a closed status, that we review them. And this is already 6 months ago. So by proper reviewing time, these reviews should already be done with. This is just reminding you that if you do have reviews before October 30, that were created before October 31st and are still left in a review status or an open review status, it's still being reviewed, then it'll just stay in review status. And the worst case scenario is that you need to submit another review for it and then just resubmit that review. It's not necessarily big of a deal because, as you said right here, as AC or Forma says right here, the worst case scenario is that the review will be left in open waiting for review, but you can just right click and create, submit a new review for the file, and it will override it. And you'll be able to review the file again. However, this does serve as a good reminder for us to review any reviews created before October 31st, or else it will get stuck in that status for the time being. So this does serve as a good reminder for us to go back, check our project documentation. Do we have any outstanding reviews previous to October 31st? It's already been 6 months. Theoretically, you should be reviewing all these already. So good question. Thanks for that.
So
I just want to ask Marvin, sorry, one more thing. Does anyone have any other questions? We're already 4 minutes over. Marvin, I'll ask your question after.
Yeah, Kelvin has one.
Okay. Project closeout submits and reviews. Yes, but project closeouts submits and reviews are not submitted within ACC reviews. So I don't think that should be an issue. This is just for the documents that are submitted through reviews, and by default on the template, those things are going to be weekly statement of working days. Those things are going to be certified payrolls. Those things are going to be things like that. Those recurring submittals that should be reviewed every week.
So, and you talked about submittals and RFIs too, right?
Nope.
When you talk about reviewers.
Nope. This is only for review or ACC Forma reviews. So
that's not submittals or RFIs included
no submittals
in that?
or RFIs. Nope. It's nothing to do with submittals or RFIs. It's merely only reviews.
Yeah, can you show an example of a review?
Will do. Yes. So like I said, a review is anything that's set up from the data. So from build, we have modules from submittals, RFIs. This is not associated as Forma review. So submittals and RFIs will not be affected by this. What will be affected is in data management. If you go into files and you submitted a review like this, or once it loads, I can show you. Yeah. Give it 1 second to load. And if I go into here and I select a particular full file, I hopefully there's some file in here that I can click on. There isn't going to be any, but let's see. Okay, so if I'm submitting this for review, then this is the review process that we're talking about. So if we right click on the folder, we submit for review, we select an approval workflow. So right now, weekly statement of working days, certified payrolls, as I said before, that is done through data management reviews. So I go to here, data management, go to reviews. These are the reviews that we're talking about here. Does not have to do with submittals. It does not have to do with RFIs. Is there any other questions? I know we're 7 minutes over. Apologies, kid. Okay,